Chris Luxon still wears the crown. Yes, that's right. Someone is right now hosing the blood off the walls of the caucus room of the National Party, but we are coming at you with all the latest and all of the best views. Plus, 2 bad polls for Labour, 2 in 1 week. Boy, great week for that to happen. What does that mean? And another leadership coup in 2 months. Where do we go from here? We'll tell you. You're with Maxim Institute's Select Committee, the politics podcast that makes you a lot smarter. And we are joined by 2 smart people, Rebecca Birmingham, our comms officer, and Thomas Scrimgeour, researcher. Guys, let's get straight into this. Thomas, a government having a leadership coup less than 90 days out from the election. What were they thinking?
It certainly seems very, very surprising to be going through this now. When we know several months back there was a coup attempt at various points during this government. Christopher Luxon has faced questions around his leadership, and that can be very understandable. But the general public does not like when parties are talking about themselves and facing this instability, and it is very, very close to the election. So it seems like a surprising decision now to really kind of raise the question again. But I think what we're seeing is that although National is in government, their polling is relatively shaky, hanging around that 30% mark, but they're still going to win a lot of electorates. So what that means is that they do not have many list seats available for people to win over. So very, very few members of parliament on the list are likely to make it back in. And that leads to an unhappy caucus, because if you don't have a pathway into government, back into parliament and current polling, well, maybe you're going to start asking questions about whether the guy in charge is really who you're backing. So there's some unhappy campers, but Luxon has come through and maintained, as you said, his crown. So we'll see if they can keep it steady from here.
And Becky, the announcement, very, very short, very succinct, and very much repeating the national election slogan. What did you make of it?
Yeah, I actually love the way Luxon just came in. I thought it was good that it was short and sharp, and he basically said, we are united, and he had his party backing him, literally physically standing behind him. And I think that's what the general public needs to see and needs to know in order to maintain confidence in the National Party. They had to really show a united front. It sort of feels a little bit like we've been taken on a roller coaster, and now it's like, oh no, it's all sorted. No, we're good. No, just business as usual.
And I guess I'm not sure if I buy that. We'll get to that later in the podcast. Where to from here? Really interesting, I think, and I want to get your take on this, Rebecca. Just in terms of when there are coup narratives, from a media point of view, it's the people who are plotting that have the advantage, because when we think about the news, the first 3 letters are new, N-E-W. Now, this is an old story, but it's a new iteration of it. They seem to have the advantage.
It's so true, and I feel like it almost creates like a manufactured consensus where you begin to be like, well, who's actually telling the truth? And I think the whole time this was happening, there was a part of me that was like, okay, if I just took a step back, is it the voters that are having an issue right now? How many people within the National Party are actually having an issue? We obviously do see issues within the party itself, and that's not a new thing for them. But I think when the media take hold of a story, they can almost create a bigger story, and then others see the story and think, oh, well, now I've lost confidence because what's going on? And there's chaos. And I'm like, how much of the chaos was real and how much was not created but perpetuated by the media?
And I guess the media, along with nature, Thomas, abhors a vacuum. So for people who like to speak and like to speculate, it is harvest season.
Oh, absolutely. And huge news story, great for the clicks. I mean, I really appreciated the headline stuff was running, coup watch, really getting the cut through. But on the other side, I think it's really strange how much national MPs were willing to say to the media prior to the caucus meeting, right? So they're arriving in Wellington last night and then to Parliament today to go into this meeting to sort out who their leader is. And many of them are having these back and forths with the with the media about, where they stand and their thoughts and all of that. And it seems really, really strange because you can just not say things. I really enjoyed Jerry Brownlee arriving at the airport, and he's got like this quite booming voice, and he walks in and he's got a bit of a smile on his face. He's like, I'm not making any comments on it, kind of thing. And then the media, asks him a question. What did I say? And he just, a bit of a grin, but he's like, I'm not making a comment, walk past. There's no actual story there when you say nothing. So I thought national MPs did say a surprising amount, and I'm not sure what the strategy was there.
And that goes back to something that you underlined, which is dissatisfaction within the caucus. So we have an announcement. Nonetheless, is it clear that we have a conclusion? And we will get to that a bit later on the select committee. One note I think it was also good to add to this wasn't a debate about the ideological or the political direction of the National Party. This wasn't business, this was personal. The person is still there, Chris Luxon is still there, the business goes on, but does the personal part of it go away? I think, there's going to be, I'm going to sound like some new age sort of counsellor here, but there's going to be a lot of healing required.
Very true. Yeah.
Do you reckon just take the party on a camping trip, get a fire out, and you write down your grievances with whoever in the party you don't like, then you throw it on the bonfire and let it go up in smoke, as we can kind of leave it in the past and walk across the coals afterwards? Absolutely,
or let it float down the river. Yeah, I think we've done that one before. And I think that touches on what we were saying before, even with the media responses, because you see people like Mark Mitchell, such a party loyalist. I'm loyal to who's in charge. And then others who, it's like they're just saying whatever they want. And I'm like, what media training have we had? Yeah, and that makes me think, this isn't just the media, this is the party itself. It's sort of like, where's the cohesion? Yeah.
And I thought it very indicative at the stand-up that Chris Bishop was holding a mop in a bucket. So I guess it's him who will be mopping the caucus room out. I'm kidding, by the way. That wasn't representative, but
they did roll out like a full squad shot, right? So Luxon is at the podium and he's got Willis to his side as deputy, but then you have Simeon Brown, Erica Stanford, Mark Mitchell right behind. And Chris Bishop was with the group, but in the shot on the live stream, he was actually off camera. It was only in a photo on the side that we saw him, but very much wanting to do this show of strength picture. I think Paul Goldsmith was there as well. Don't want to leave him out, but he said they didn't just roll out Luxon standing alone. It was the visual. Everyone was forced to stand there, in an acknowledgement and agreement that this is where we're at, and now they have to see if they can hold that as a unified team approach the rest of the election.
All they have to do is do it again and again and again. Speaking of doing it again and again and again, and maybe it's not working, Labor's 2 poll results this week, and not good. Great week to have it, by the way. That's fantastic. But 2 bad polls. One of them a little bit wobbly, but it's sort of like I've got to say, I want to see 3 bad polls to actually to get a trend. But Rebecca, I'm just sort of thinking about Labor's ability to play with smaller parties and its desire to play with smaller parties or maybe more fringe parties. This puts them in a bit of a dilemma, doesn't it?
Yeah, exactly. Hipkins needs to acknowledge there's other parties out there and they're becoming quite popular with the voters. And so I think that changes the game a little bit for them, because at the moment it feels like their focus has just been sort of staying under the radar, letting National take up all the attention. And they've done a good job of that, to be honest. Like, we've not really heard much in the media about what's happening with Labour. But because of the minor parties, I wonder if they need to think a little deeper about their strategy there.
So a turnaround, Thomas. I know that Chris Hipkins has ruled out New Zealand first, but you go back to 2017, actually, and this was one of the riffs that was mentioned in the Luxon coup thing was, Labor changed track in 2017. Actually, Jacinda Ardern finished quite considerably second place and was helped in by Winston Peters. So look, I've got the approach here. Labor and New Zealand first. I wonder if Chris Hipkins Hipkins is on the phone to Winston Peters as we speak.
Well, I mean, Winston Peters has already ruled out Labour and Chris Hipkins has already said that. So they would both have to swallow a bit of pride if they were to now suddenly explore forming a coalition. I think Labour has been playing it kind of safe. They've been relatively minimalist in their campaign, and they've kept a tight team, as you've said, which I think has been really strong. I think in the current iteration, there's not much hope that they're going to be able to form a coalition with New Zealand First, even if they wanted to. They have to hope that this disruption in the coalition with a national and then the relations with the other parties, they disavow them and hope seeming like the steady option, right? Because National often likes to position itself as the safe pair of hands party. It's like a big part of their brand. But when they're having their own internal ructions, they're no longer able to compellingly tell that story. So, I mean, it's been surprising actually over the past 3 years. After a big loss in 2023, Labour have kept it really united, and that's not to be knocked or underrated. It's a hard thing to do when you take a big loss. And now somehow it's the governing party that has all these internal squabbles. So if Labour holds the ship, maybe these two bad polls just fade into the past and they manage to kind of bounce back. So I think it's keep it steady and see how they go.
I wonder, though, Rebecca, you raised other parties. The Opportunities Party here, one of the polls, the Opportunities Party, once again breached 6. That's more than a few times that's happened. That could be eating away at Labour's support.
Yeah, totally. The minor parties are making up a much bigger party vote than ever before. Like you said, 6. And so it'll be really interesting to see how that plays out.
Okay, so I've got a strategy here. Why doesn't, and you're saying, Thomas, that Labour, they play it straight. Why don't they play it national? So there's a coup on Hipkins. Turn it round. Who knows? And it works. The other thing is it works better for oppositions to change the deck chairs, to stop it being the Titanic, rather than governments. It's just a bad look in governments. What do you reckon? Chris Hipkins' head on a platter sometime soon?
So the problem they'd have is, well, who's putting his head on a platter? Who is coming up next? Because I think it's theoretically still an option for them, but they'd actually have to be able to coalesce around a new candidate. Because I think, what we have to remember in 2017 is that it was a relatively bloodless coup when Jacinda took over, that immediately the party coalesced. Andrew Little stepped aside very graciously and almost willingly, which is not necessarily how it always goes, if someone's kind of grumbling in the background. So firstly is who is the person that would replace Hipkins. But I also think if National had done a coup, then maybe in the midst of the messiness, Labour could do one because, well, it's all just a bit chaotic and we're resetting everyone. But because National have had a sort of failed coup, what you want to criticise them as being unstable and kind of, oh, look, they're a bit messy. We are the stable ones. And a coup doesn't serve that narrative. So I think it's actually perhaps made it harder now. If National had gotten rid of Luxon, maybe we could have had a double and that would have been very exciting because obviously the purpose of politics is to produce content for podcasts such as this. And we would have all had a great time. But I think it would now be very hard to get rid of Hipkins.
Rebecca, chances of them rolling Chris Hipkins?
I don't think they're high. I feel like Labour are quite united within themselves. Having said that, though, although what's going on makes National look quite unstable, since 2018 they have churned through Bill English, who resigned, Simon Bridges, who got rolled, Todd Muller, who resigned after 53 days from stress, and Judith Collins, who also got rolled. And I say that to say, and yet a lot of National Party voters still vote. They still believe that they're stable enough despite the fact that they have had so much instability in the past. So there's another part of me that's like, okay, this makes them look bad. But I don't know. I mean, I don't know if it's actually going to wipe them out.
Yeah, well, and I'm going to refer here to a conversation I had with the famous journalist Christopher Hitchens, and he was one of the heroes of my youth, and he loftily proclaimed to me that left-wing parties had what he called a tendency towards the schismatic, which means that they're constantly disagreeing, and there is always an ideology test that some people will fail, and so they just get more and more, I think, atomized. But we're not seeing that. We are actually seeing a Labour Party that is expressing unity, stability, and look, you can agree or disagree about that coherence, but coherence as well, which is intriguing. So, Christopher Hitchens, wherever you are, you might have to revisit your views. Speaking of revisiting views, let's move to the last topic here. What's next? Are we going to be talking about this in another month? Are we going to be doing the third coup attempt or is it the fourth? I can't remember. What do you think the future holds, Rebecca?
Well, I feel like after today's announcement, National really presenting a united front, there's a part of me, and I wonder if it's reflective of other voters, where I'm like, oh, you know what? I'm sort of just tired of this fluffy party all the politics. I feel like let's just focus on the policies. Part of me wonders if this is just hype that's being perpetuated. I wonder too what Luxon will do as a result of this. Are people going to get sacked? I don't know. There's a part of me that just hopes to see a little bit of a hard line and discipline. I think the general public just want to see him act a little bit more in that way. But I don't think this is going to happen again. Although never say never.
And I wonder, you talk about discipline, Rebecca, perhaps he may have to, in the future, be a bit more self-disciplined in his public utterances. Yes. Now, to me, his musings on a talkback on News Talk ZB's session with Kerry Woodham about MMP, I don't mind that. I think that's the Prime Minister thinking big picture. But given what we've seen about the dissent within the caucus, you have to be aware that you're not necessarily able to, speak out in that way. What do you say? Do you think there's going to be a change, Thomas, in approach? What's coming?
Yeah, hard to know, but I think there ought to be, and a change from probably everyone involved, right? So Christopher Luxon has probably, for example, with the MMP floating, we need to look at our electoral system as kind of a significant constitutional change that no one else seemed to be aware of, that probably wasn't in the front of mind for voters, and kind of makes it look like you're just struggling with your coalition partners a bit. So like that sort of freewheeling is probably going to have to fall by the wayside. But Luxon is probably going to have to, within his caucus, if he's not already, kind of really lay down the law. I mean, hard to know what happens inside a closed-door caucus meeting, but you hope that it ended up with, if they've decided that he is the leader, they're going to the election, in sort of like a medieval feudal lord style, everyone was forced to kneel and pledge fealty, right? Like, they cannot go to the election with any more questions about, are we sticking with our leader? So you absolutely cannot brook the slightest amount of dissent. And then the real test will be, will national MPs be anonymously leaking to the media? Because that's so corrosive to trust, as if, anonymous reports that several national MPs have expressed discontent with da-da-da-da-da. Like, there's just a cycle of people not working together, not confiding in one another because they are worried about leaks to the media. So they're going to have to get their act together because voters will not like this.
Okay, just crazy idea. There is no such thing as bad publicity. There is only publicity. We see a bump in the polls for National, because it's all been about National. Chris Luxon has cemented his position. Have I had 5 drinks before midday, or am I onto something? Rebecca?
Whoa, I feel like, scandal is brewing. I'm not confident because I feel like Luxon is still criticised for corporate speak, chatting like a CEO, not really getting on with the media in the same way as some of the other parties. And so I think until that changes, I'm not sure that things are going to get too much better. I don't think they can get much worse, but I feel like there needs to be some shifts there. Like, he's been criticised for talking like a CEO, and the truth is because he was a CEO. Like, that is his experience. And so, I think they need to see some shift, and I'm not sure that this is going to suddenly cause, Labour to just do a lot worse. Yeah, I don't know.
So my thoughts are, drawing on the literary critic and philosopher René Girard. Anyway, he has a French-sounding name, very thoughtful, but he always talks about the role of the scapegoat in a community, right? Where to bring people together, there needs to be some named scapegoat upon which people put their frustrations and their outrage and their anger. Unfortunately, with this coup, we've only had sort of reports about, whispers about who was running the coup, and we haven't yet seen any demotion, certainly not in that initial press conference. And so there is no one to blame. I think if, Luxon could cement dominance by identifying a scapegoat, perhaps people might say, yeah, wow, he seems like he really dealt with that. But we're not going to have that resolution. And so I don't think this is going to be a really, really strong outcome for National. But who knows?
No, I see. You're having a bet both ways. Well, here's the part of our podcast where you can't have a bet both ways. Well, you have a bet three ways, actually. You pick three politicians and see how they go. That's right. This is Fantasy Beehive. And each of us, a week ago, without any knowledge that there would be a coup that we'd be talking about today, picked three leading performers. And look, our time is short, so we'll just basically, why don't we just go straight to the numbers and say who won or who did you pick, and then we'll get to who won very quickly. So Thomas, start with, actually, can you explain it very quickly as well?
So we've got our Fantasy Beehive. We're collecting scores from every MP in Parliament. So for the actions within the House, that's bills passed in their name as they go through readings, questions they've asked and written questions, as well as media hits. So that's, whether they're getting headlines or whether they are getting mentions in the article. So we scrape all of that over the past week. Each of them earns a score and we see who wins.
Okie doke. So why don't we see, Rebecca, how did you do? Who did you pick and why? And what did they get?
Well, yeah, really interesting that, like Thomas said, we actually do this in advance. So I had Chris Pink as my first pick, and then I had Chloe Swarbrick and Chris Hipkins. What's interesting is Chris Pink's name has been floated and come up a little bit this recent week, and obviously I voted without knowing that. And so, yeah, I voted for that, and I got, do you want me to announce my score right now?
Go.
Okay, I got a whopping 8. I say whopping. It's not great, but compared to the last few weeks, I think I did okay.
Thomas.
Well, I had picked exactly 0 national MPs. So we pick a government MP, an opposition MP, and then we have a free-floating one who we can go with. But I had David Seymour, Chris Hipkins, and Camilla Ballich. And I thought, I was tired of losing. I picked heavyweights. I picked 2 party leaders, and then Camilla Ballich, who has gotten members' bills passed through the House, even though she's not even in government. I thought, I'm going to play to win. And it turns out none of them got really a lot of cut through this week. 8 points as well. So not a strong performance from me.
8 points.
Tim's looking smug.
Yeah, all right. Tell us, Tim.
Well, what are 8 threes?
He's trying to figure out how to sound humble.
24. No, he's not trying to sound. He's just 8 threes are 24, Tim.
Yeah, I didn't quite make 24. I got 23. And I picked Paul Goldsmith, opposition, Helen White, and open call Todd Stevenson from ACT. And the reason I got what I got was Paul Goldsmith. He got a total of 16 points in Parliament. And there are 3 bills that he's involved with: the Crimes Amendment Bill, the Constitution Amendment Bill, the English Language Bill. A total, though, of 11 bills that he has been working on. And I think it's useful to refocus in a week where we're talking about coups, we're talking about speculation, we're talking about what the media are up to and the role the media plays. Actually, we elect our politicians to become MPs, to go into Parliament, to change the law as they see fit under a particular scheme, and that's what puts the rubber on the road. And so, I'm just saying it's a victory for reality. It's a victory for common sense. And if you want a bit more of that, plus some more wild speculation from my colleagues here, you'll be back to the Select Committee next week when, well, who knows what the hell will be going on and what we'll be talking about. But I do know this one thing. It'll be awesome. So like and subscribe. And if you enjoyed this, tell your mates. See you soon.